Let my best friend move into my home after she said she escaped an abusive relationship, but then I caught her on camera kissing my husband in my own kitchen, and she had the nerve to ask me to move out so they could be together. I'm not going to use real names or ages as I don't want to be recognized. Let me start by saying I hadn't heard from Lila in almost 4 years when she suddenly popped back into my life with a string of missed calls and a panicked voice message. She said she needed a place to stay, that she had finally left her abusive boyfriend and had nowhere else to go. Her voice cracked midway through, and I could hear her trying not to cry. I sat there holding my phone, feeling a mixture of old loyalty and immediate unease settle in my stomach. Lila and I had grown up together. She was loud, impulsive, and always the type who had something going on. We drifted apart in our 20s, different cities, different choices, and truthfully, I had started seeing how destructive her patterns were. But hearing her like that, broken and desperate, it brought up something I thought I'd buried. The instinct to protect her. When I told my husband, Eric, that she wanted to come stay with us for a while, he looked confused. He barely knew her, only met her twice, but he knew enough about the stories I'd shared to hesitate. He asked if I was sure about letting her into our home. I said she had nowhere else to go. That it would just be a few weeks, just until she figured things out. He shrugged and said it was my call. Looking back, I wish I'd said no. Lila showed up the next afternoon with nothing but a backpack, a duffel bag, and tear-streaked makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I hugged her at the door, and she clung to me like she was drowning. Eric stood behind me, awkwardly polite, and Lila gave him a small nod before asking if she could go lie down. We set her up in the guest room. She didn't talk much that first day, just mumbled something about how grateful she was and how she owed us everything. By the end of that week, Lila had made herself at home. She rearranged the furniture in the guest room, started leaving her shoes near the front door, and offered to cook one night. Eric laughed at one of her jokes over dinner and said she actually made his favorite pasta better than I did. It was a harmless comment, maybe even meant as a compliment to her, but the way she smiled, it stayed with me. It was subtle things at first. Lila always seemed to be around when Eric was home. If I was in the kitchen, she'd suddenly be in the living room with him, laughing too loud. One morning, I came out of the shower and found her sitting on the couch, wearing my sweatshirt and sipping coffee from my mug. She said she thought it was his. She grinned and said it smelled like him anyway. Eric brushed it off as her being quirky. He told me not to overthink it. That she'd been through a lot, and maybe she just didn't have boundaries because she hadn't felt safe in a while. I wanted to believe that. I told myself she was just adjusting. But I started feeling like I was the one adjusting around her. She'd slip into conversations with little digs saying Eric deserved someone who made his favorite coffee just right, or that she always knew how to talk sports when I didn't. She even joked once that if I wasn't careful, she might have to steal him for herself. She laughed when she said it. I didn't. One night, I was getting ready for bed and overheard her telling Eric that she wished she had what we had. That she could finally see what real love looked like. My chest tightened. It sounded sweet, almost innocent. But something in her voice sounded rehearsed, like she was reading a line she'd been practicing. Eric said she was just hurting, that I was reading too much into things. I kept trying to be patient. I told myself she was in pain. That she just needed time. That I had to be the bigger person because she didn't have anyone else. But slowly, I started to feel like I didn't either. Eric was more distant with me. He said he was just stressed from work. Lila volunteered to help him organize his home office, and I told her no, but a day later, I found her in there anyway, sorting files like she belonged. She smiled and said she thought she was helping. My gut told me something was off, but my brain kept telling me I was being dramatic. That I couldn't just kick her out because of a vibe. But deep down, I knew. I just didn't want to believe it. Then one evening, I walked into the living room and caught them on the couch, nothing obviously wrong. Just the way her legs were crossed toward him, how his hand was resting just a little too close to hers on the cushion. They both flinched when they saw me. She stood up too fast. He looked guilty without saying anything. Lila said they were just watching a movie. She said I was acting paranoid. That maybe I should talk to someone because all this stress was making me spiral. And Eric? He didn't defend me. He just stared at the floor. That night, I sat in the bathroom with the water running and stared at myself in the mirror. My best friend was sleeping in my guest room, wearing my clothes, making my husband laugh, and slowly pushing me out of my own life. And nobody else seemed to notice. But I did. And I was done pretending not to. Update 1, I started paying closer attention after that night on the couch. I watched how Lila lingered around Eric a little longer each time he walked into the room. How her voice went a notch softer when she spoke to him. She'd brush past him in the kitchen with this breathy laugh, like everything he said was the cleverest thing she'd ever heard. But Eric? He didn't exactly stop her either. He still kissed me goodnight, still showed up to dinner, but there was a hollowness to it. A lack of presence. Like his body was here, but his attention wasn't. When I tried to talk to him, he said I was imagining things. That Lila wasn't doing anything wrong, and that I should stop being so paranoid. He told me that she just needed a little warmth and normalcy after the trauma she'd been through. I told him I was all for helping her heal, but that didn't mean I wanted to be pushed out of my own marriage to do it. He got quiet after that. Walked out and said he needed some air. That was the moment I realized something was seriously wrong. Over the next week, I started documenting things. Not because I thought I'd need proof, but because I needed to remind myself I wasn't crazy. The little moments added up. The inside jokes they suddenly shared that I wasn't a part of. The text notifications that he'd flip his phone over to hide. Lila leaving the house looking a little too polished for someone with no job, then coming back flushed and smiling. She started talking to me differently, too. More condescending. More like someone who knew something I didn't. She'd say things like, "Not everyone is cut out for long-term relationships," or, "Marriage is tricky, some people just pretend it works because they don't want to admit it's dead." Always with this smirk, like she was planting seeds and waiting for them to bloom. And yet, she kept saying how grateful she was to me. How I'd saved her. She called me her angel, her rock, her oldest friend. It made me sick to my stomach. The final straw was when I caught her in our bedroom. I'd come home early from a grocery run, and the house was quiet. I didn't hear the TV, didn't hear music, didn't even hear her usual humming in the kitchen. When I turned the corner, I found her in my room. Not just standing there. She was sitting at my vanity, brushing her hair, wearing my silk robe. The one Eric had gifted me on our first anniversary. She looked startled for a second, but only for a second. She smiled and said she hoped I didn't mind, that she was just trying it on because it looked so soft. Said she always wondered how it felt. I asked her what she was doing in here at all. She just shrugged and said she was curious. That it was still just a house. I didn't answer her. I walked out, shut the bedroom door behind me, and went straight to the spare key drawer. That night, I put a lock on my bedroom door. When Eric asked why, I told him that if he couldn't protect our space from other people, I would do it myself. He looked at me like I was losing it. But I wasn't. I was finally starting to see clearly. A few days later, I decided to check the house cameras. We'd installed a few indoor motion-activated cameras years ago when we were traveling a lot, mostly just for peace of mind. I hadn't checked them in months, but something told me I needed to. There it was. Footage from the past few weeks. Moments when I wasn't home. Lila stepping out of the guest room in barely anything. Eric in the kitchen, shirtless, pouring wine at 2 in the afternoon. One clip showed her rubbing his shoulders as he stood at the sink. Another showed him pulling her in for a hug that lingered way too long. But the moment that broke me? It was just a few seconds. A kiss. Quick, but not accidental. Not friendly. Intimate. Familiar. I felt my throat close up. My ears started ringing. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I backed away from the screen, sat on the couch, and stared into nothing for over an hour. That night, I told Eric I had to go visit my sister for a few days. I packed a bag and drove to a hotel instead. I needed space. Time to think. Time to decide whether I even wanted to fight for this anymore. Eric texted me the next morning asking if I was okay. I didn't reply. Lila sent a message too, said she hoped everything was alright and that she missed me. I didn't respond to that one either. Instead, I called a lawyer. I didn't know what I wanted yet. But I wanted to know my options. 2 days later, I went back home to find Lila waiting for me in the kitchen. Alone. She said she'd been hoping to talk to me privately. She asked if we could sit down and talk woman to woman. I almost laughed. But I nodded. We sat. And she said something that made my blood run cold. She told me that she and Eric were in love. That it had been building for a while. That it was real. She said she wanted to talk about how we could work this out peacefully. Then she said she had a plan. That maybe I could move out for a while. Maybe I could take some time for myself and let them figure things out. She was smiling while she said it. Like she genuinely believed I'd sit there and agree. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Because I was going to say something that would wipe that smirk off her face permanently. But I wanted to enjoy the look on her face when I did. She just sat there with that smug little tilt to her head, completely unaware that I already knew everything. She thought she was offering me a reasonable deal. That I'd just, step aside gracefully so she could shack up with my husband and parade around in the life I built? I asked her if she had finished. She nodded like she expected me to cry, maybe plead. But I just stood up slowly, walked over to the kitchen counter, and opened the drawer where I had stashed the USB drive. I held it up and told her she might want to sit back down. Because I had something to show her. She looked confused, but she didn't move. So I walked to the living room, turned on the TV, plugged the USB into the smart port, and started scrolling through the clips. At first, she tried to pretend she didn't recognize anything. She sat rigid on the couch, staring at the screen like she was watching a boring documentary. But then the footage from the hallway came on. The one where she came out of the guest room in nothing but Eric's shirt, twirling her hair like a schoolgirl, then heading into the kitchen to kiss my husband while he leaned against the counter, drinking coffee. That's when she stood up. I told her to sit back down. She didn't. She stood there breathing heavily, hands slightly shaking. I paused the video and asked her how long it had been going on. She didn't answer. So I asked again, was it from the beginning? Was it all just a setup? She said it wasn't what I thought. That she and Eric just got close. That it wasn't about betrayal, it was about timing and emotions, and confusing feelings. She said maybe I hadn't realized how distant Eric and I had become. I told her to cut the therapy speak and own what she did. I reminded her I was the one who offered her a place to stay. I was the one who defended her when people questioned her story. And she repaid me by crawling into bed with my husband. She tried to apologize. I told her I didn't want her apologies, I wanted her gone. That was when she got defensive. She said she was tired of pretending. That Eric was the one who pursued her, that they had a connection I could never understand. She said maybe this was fate. Maybe I was just in the way. I almost laughed. She really believed that, didn't she? So I told her something I'd been saving. I told her Eric didn't know I had the footage yet. That he had no idea I'd found out days ago. That I had already hired a lawyer. That everything was being documented and lined up. Her face went pale. I told her that since she felt so at home in my house, she could help me by packing up her things and being gone within the hour. Otherwise, I'd have the police escort her out for trespassing. She asked if I was serious. I said deadly. That was when she started crying. She said she had nowhere else to go. That Eric said he'd take care of her. That he promised they'd start over, and I wouldn't make things ugly. I told her it was already ugly, and that was thanks to both of them. She didn't pack fast, but she left. Eric came home 2 hours later and didn't find me waiting in the kitchen like I usually was. Instead, he found the printed screenshots laid out across the dining table like evidence at a crime scene. He called out for me, but I didn't answer. I was upstairs, locking up the bedroom, sorting the last of my files. I didn't even want to talk to him. But eventually, I came down. He asked what the hell this was. I said it was everything he thought I'd never see. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just dropped his hands to his sides and sat down like the weight of it all finally hit him. He told me he didn't mean for it to happen. That he didn't know how to stop it once it started. He said he was confused. That he felt neglected. I asked him what exactly he wanted me to do while he was out there feeling confused. Clap? Bake cookies for his mistress? He didn't say anything after that. I told him his stuff was packed and to get out. The rest he could come pick up later, and the lawyer would be in touch. That was when he got mad. Not devastated. Not remorseful. Mad. He said I was overreacting. That we could fix this. That it was just a mistake, and I was going to throw away a marriage for a few slip-ups. I told him the only thing I was throwing away was dead weight. He stood up, slammed a hand against the wall, and told me I was being cold. I said, good. Because cold was the only way I was going to survive this. Update 2. The moment Eric left the house with a duffel bag and a blank look on his face, I didn't waste a second. He thought he was buying himself time. He thought I'd cry, grieve, sit in that house, and fall apart while he figured out how to spin things in his favor. But that's not what happened. As soon as the door shut behind him, I locked it, sat down on the couch, and pulled up my contact list. If they wanted this mess to stay quiet, they should have kept it in their pants. I wasn't about to let either of them play the victim. The first call I made was to his parents. His mom answered with her usual cheerful voice, asking how things were going. I told her that she might want to sit down. And then I spilled everything. Not just the betrayal. Not just the fact that Lila was living under our roof while sneaking around behind my back with her son. I told her there were videos. That I had seen it all with my own eyes. That I had the proof. And then I sent it. I could hear the sound of her gasping as the file started playing on her end. She didn't even try to defend him. She just asked in a choked up voice if it was really Lila. I said yes. The same Lila who cried on my couch, the same one who claimed she had nowhere else to go, the same girl who called me her safe space. She didn't speak again. She just hung up. I moved on to the next number, Eric's older brother. Then his aunt. His cousins. One by one, I called every single person who ever gushed about how lucky I was to have married into such a loving, close-knit family. I told them the truth, and then I showed them. Lila had no idea what was coming. While she was likely still curled up somewhere, crying over how I kicked her out, I was burning every bridge she thought she had behind my back. She always did like attention well, now she had it. I didn't stop there. I posted a carefully worded update on our shared friend group. No names, just enough truth to make the people who mattered start asking questions. By the next morning, I started getting messages. Some were from people who were shocked. Others were from people who said they were sorry. And a few my favorites were from people who told me I did the right thing. That I was brave. That if they had been in my place, they wouldn't have handled it half as calmly. I didn't feel calm, though. I felt hollow. Like I had reached the center of something and found nothing left. Eric tried calling, of course. He left messages telling me I was overreacting, that I was being spiteful, that I was hurting his family for no reason. He even said I was making it hard for him to process. I almost laughed at that. He wanted time to process? He had 6 months to process while he cheated under my nose. Lila? She texted. She said she understood I was upset, but that I didn't have to ruin her life. She said I was making her out to be a monster when things weren't black and white. I replied with a single line, then maybe next time, don't sleep with your best friend's husband. She didn't respond after that. What amazed me was how quickly things shifted. The same people who used to defend her, praise her resilience after her so-called traumatic past, were now distancing themselves completely. People she thought she had wrapped around her finger suddenly stopped answering her calls. Her old college friends messaged me privately and said they always had a weird feeling about her. The same happened with Eric. He went from golden boy to cautionary tale almost overnight. His own parents told me they didn't know who he was anymore. His boss, who was friends with his dad, called to tell me that Eric had taken a leave of absence from work because the stress was too much. I almost asked if it was too much stress to handle a double life, or too much stress knowing he finally got caught. I won't lie, I got a small sense of satisfaction watching their fantasy fall apart. But that satisfaction didn't come from revenge. It came from knowing I wasn't crazy. From knowing I hadn't imagined the distance or the gaslighting or the sudden coldness in my own home. I wasn't paranoid, I was patient. And patience brought me the truth. I was already seeing a lawyer about the divorce. He told me that with the evidence I had, the case would be clean cut. Eric might try to delay, stall, or even make a fuss about finances or property, but he wouldn't win. Not with what I had. And I'd get the house. It was in both our names, yes, but I'd put the down payment in full. The lawyer said we had enough to show my financial responsibility far outweighed his. Plus, The footage didn't exactly scream loyal spouse entitled to half. That night, as I sat alone in what used to be our home, I realized something strange. I wasn't sad anymore. I was tired. But not heartbroken. I think the heartbreak happened months ago, slowly, in pieces. I just hadn't realized until everything exploded how long I'd been emotionally alone. I started making plans. Not just for the divorce, but for my future. A short trip. A new hobby. Something I could call mine again. Because if nothing else, I owed myself that. Update 3. A year ago, I was picking up the pieces of my life after Lila and Eric wrecked it like a car they borrowed without permission. Now, I look at those same pieces and barely recognize them. Not because I put them back the same way, but because I built something completely different from scratch. Stronger. Better. Real. The divorce went through without much delay. Eric tried to stall it at first, tried whining about how I embarrassed him, how I ruined his life, how no one looked at him the same anymore. But his complaints fell flat in court when we submitted the video of him and Lila practically confessing their delusions of building a life together without even waiting for the ink on our marriage license to dry. My lawyer didn't even have to try that hard. We had everything. The texts. The footage. The receipts, both literal and metaphorical. I got the house. The car. A modest settlement. Honestly, I would have walked away with nothing just to be done with him, but watching him struggle to grasp that he lost everything due to his own idiocy? That was a bonus. I didn't expect much from his family either, but surprisingly, his parents called me a few weeks after the divorce was finalized. His mom cried. Said she had no idea how bad things had gotten, and how Lila had always rubbed her the wrong way, but she thought it was jealousy on her part. Now she knew better. It wasn't the apology that healed me. It was the fact that someone who used to blindly defend their son was finally calling out his actions for what they were. Disgusting. And then there was Nathan. Eric's older brother. Quiet, practical, kind of reserved. We never interacted much when I was married, just a few polite hellos at family events. He lived in another state and only came home for holidays or when someone got hospitalized. He reached out after the divorce, just to check on me. Said he heard from his parents what had happened and wanted to make sure I was okay. At first, it was just short conversations. Messages here and there. Then calls. Then one weekend, he came into town for work and asked if I wanted to grab dinner. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to see him, but because I didn't know if I could separate him from the mess I'd just escaped. But he wasn't anything like Eric. That night, he took me to a quiet restaurant tucked into a side street downtown. We didn't talk about Eric. Not once. We talked about travel, favorite movies, and the time he got stuck in a ski lift in Colorado. I laughed so hard I almost spilled wine down my dress. I hadn't laughed like that in months. After dinner, he walked me to my car. There was a pause. One of those heavy, loaded silences. Then he leaned in. It wasn't rushed or desperate, it was intentional. I kissed him back. We ended up back at my place that night. And then again the next night. It was messy in all the right ways. Passionate, a little chaotic, like two people trying to relearn what it meant to be wanted for the right reasons. It wasn't love. Not yet, anyway. But it was healing. Nathan stayed for a few weeks while he worked remotely. We didn't put a label on anything. We didn't have to. He made me breakfast in the mornings, kissed me on the forehead before my meetings, and never once asked me to move on before I was ready. Eventually, he had to go back to his job. We agreed to keep things open-ended. He still calls. Still checks in. Sometimes we flirt. Sometimes we talk like old friends. He's been patient, and I've been grateful. Then, out of nowhere, Eric showed up. Not at my home. At my office. I was walking back from the break room when I saw him standing outside the glass doors near reception. He looked tired. Worn down. His shoulders were slumped, his tie was crooked, and his expression was that same self-righteous blend of fake sadness and manipulative charm he always wore when things didn't go his way. He didn't even make it through the first sentence before I cut him off. I asked him if he'd come to pitch another half-baked fantasy or if he just needed directions to the nearest dignity rehab. He tried to act offended. Said he just wanted to talk. That we had a shared history. I asked him if that shared history included him screwing my best friend under my roof, then lying to my face while planning to kick me out of our house. He started stammering, trying to backpedal, but I was done playing nice. I told him flat out mocking tone and all that the only conversation he was getting from me was the sound of the security desk being notified if he didn't leave. He left. I don't know what he expected. That I'd still have feelings? That I'd break down and admit I missed him? Please. I don't miss Eric. I don't even hate him anymore. What I feel now is something closer to indifference. Which, frankly, is worse for him. As for Lila, last I heard, she was couch hopping and trying to rebrand herself as some kind of life coach on Instagram. No one's buying it. Me? I'm good. I still work my 9 to 5 at the firm. I still go home to a quiet house where every item in it has been chosen by me, for me. I sleep better. Eat better. I laugh now, deep, belly laughs that make